Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to the briefing room. I'm your host, Abu Hamza. We've always looked at different groups of people involved in the Somali conflicts back home. And there's a wide variety, especially if you look at South Central Somalia, especially in Mogadishu. See, we all know about the NGOs and other international humanitarian organizations. What we haven't covered on the show yet are the private contractors involved in the majority of South Central Somalia, but especially in Mogadishu. See, in recent years, according to a United Nations report, many companies have waded into the Somali chaos with contracts to protect the Somali politicians and contracts to train African troops and contracts to build a combat force to battle armed Somali pirates. Now, what it also highlighted was that it gave new details about an operation by a South African firm called Sarakan International, where they were allowed to train 1,000-member anti-piracy militia for the government of Finland, effectively creating the best equipped indigenous military force anywhere in Somalia, according to them. Now, using shell companies, some of which the United Nations says is linked to Eric Prince, who also founded the Blackwater Worldwide Security Company, Sarakan International secretly shipped military equipment. Now the problem with that was that there's an arms embargo, and so the report says that it violated this arms embargo when it imported this into northern Somalia on cargo planes leaving from Uganda and the UAE. Now several American officials have said that the Emirates, concerned about the piracy epidemic, have been secretly financing the Sarakan operation. But they seem different from the other group. And the other group is Bancroft Global. And the US government looks to agree. The US government says, "We do not want an American footprint or boot on the ground," according to Johnny Carson, the Obama administration's top State Department official for Africa. So what do they do instead? Well, Uganda and Burundi have paid Bancroft $7 million since 2010 for counterinsurgency training. Now, what happens after they pay them? Washington refunds the two African countries for their training expenses. So, as always, as you can see, America loves using proxies. And this is the group that I wanted to focus on today, Bancroft, and its president, Michael Stock.
When you're an investor on the bleeding edge, this is how a typical business trip might look. You leave your compound in Kenya and head northeast in a private plane to Mogadishu, the capital of Somalia. Hit the ground and meet up with members of your security team, some of them grizzled veterans of the world's most elite military units. Risk roadside bombs on a ride to the city in a convoy of armored trucks. Then survey your construction projects, including a new beachfront hotel that's not far off from occasional gunfire. And don't forget the flak jacket. Michael Stock is a war-zone real estate developer. He's pursuing an extreme version of that basic investor's principle: get in early.
It's just sort of untouched.
His DC-based firm, Bancroft Global Investment, already has projects under its belt in Mogadishu. The war-torn city has suffered through years of bloodshed.
And this is a typical business trip for them. As you can see from the video, they have their own private security. I mean, he's quite young himself, but he's adamant on making money from conflict zones. And to be honest, it's quite a smart idea, really, from an outsider's perspective. Get in early, buy up land, start projects, risk the bullets in the war, profit from the services you can provide to those who work in the area from high-budget NGOs and governmental agencies, and once it's peaceful, have a long-term return on your investment.
But where some people see mayhem, Stock sees money. His first commercial effort here was a kind of industrial-strength trailer park, a hotel on airport land with shipping containers refurbished as living quarters. The property has its own bar and dining area, and most nights it's overbooked with contractors and aid workers. Stock says it grosses around $2 million a year.
Now the trailer park has now grown, of course, and it's still making a huge profit for the group. But this is a temporary version of International Campus.
The company also built a waterfront complex that the United Arab Emirates has now taken over. His most ambitious project so far was turning a seaside dump into what he's calling International Campus, a $6 million, 11-acre compound on the Somali coast, complete with suites, villas, and a beachfront pool. Stock spent 11 months constructing the site.
Bedroom with a queen-size bed, sort of sitting room here, small dining table there, kitchenette there.
It opened for business in April and has a coffee shop, dining rooms, and a trauma hospital. Guests include NGOs and visiting dignitaries. Some rooms top out at $500 a night. He's starting a concrete factory because he sees a business opportunity in a capital already being rebuilt. He's also exploring agricultural projects that will help service his hotels. This isn't Stock's first war zone investment scheme. In Afghanistan, he's built rental properties in Kabul and Herat. But around half of his 200 employees worldwide are currently working here in Somalia.
Now that's what I call smart investing. See, I mean, it's one of those things that it's almost ingenious and simple. I mean, if everybody's rebuilding the city, who will they get their concrete from? And if you can monopolize the majority of the industry, you really do force people to depend on you. But Bancroft, even though it's a big enough group, they themselves really depend on Michael Stock.
Investing in conflict zones like Somalia takes a strong stomach.
This road was literally, there was not, everything looked like this.
But Stock, a 36-year-old Princeton graduate, isn't just anyone gambling on a far-fetched idea in a conflict zone. He also runs a security firm with contracts from the UN and African Union. Since 2008, the nonprofit has been training African peacekeepers and Somali soldiers in everything from bomb disposal to counterinsurgency tactics, as they've waged a battle against Al-Shabaab, the Somali Islamic group tied to Al-Qaeda.
He's the fifth generation of long line of investment bankers. So, he's got the support behind him to be able to make this work. He has the investment behind him, he has the connections and the networks, but it didn't come cheap. I mean, it was nearly 3 years of almost free security training in Somalia and being $6 million out of pocket, according to the financial filings that they made, before he landed his first contract with the UN. Now since then, obviously various UN agencies have paid the company approximately $15 million, and the African Union, with the US State Department money, have paid Bancroft approximately $25 million. All along though, at the same time, he has expanded into real estate. Now in 2011, he created the for-profit side of the company, Bancroft Global Investment. That year, he sold an 18% stake, which was worth just under $1 million, in Somali properties. He sold all that to a Washington, D.C. developer called Michael Darby. Now, as you can see, he's constantly expanding and diversifying to ensure that he gets as much revenue from as many streams as possible. Again, smart business. I mean, after graduating from Princeton, you can see that he started building up his experience when he started a mine removal company. And he had not much work. I mean, he was in Mali, Chad, and Iraq. But after the US military went after the Taliban in 2002, he followed and he went to Afghanistan. Initially, he operated at a loss, but he felt that he could lose money on security to bet on development. And it worked out for him. So over the past 8 years, the real estate and other commercial services like car rental in Afghanistan have brought in about $32 million in net revenue for him. Now, much of that money is now being redirected and reinvested in Somalia. See, Bancroft is the only contractor supplying military training to AMISOM soldiers in the country. And Mr. Stock, well, he estimates that his team of 100 or so people, they work with roughly a third of the 17,000 AMISOM forces at any given time. And he doesn't like the terms mercenary or hired guns, which he considers inaccurate. He calls his men mentors, who train people rather than fight.
Stock insists his men aren't mercenaries. He calls his trainers mentors instead. Still, some worry that the actions on the front lines by companies like Bancroft face too little scrutiny. But even some of those critics acknowledge that the contractors were there when few others would come, and that soldiers, with Bancroft's training, have helped beat back the militants.
And this is true. They have helped beat back Al-Shabaab. And AMISOM has really helped as well. But at what cost? See, nothing in this world is for free. It's for free. Everything will cost you something. everything. Which brings us nicely onto our next topic, the Central Bank of Somalia and aid. I mean, remember this?
After just 7 weeks in office, the governor of the Central Bank of Somalia has resigned, citing undue pressure to authorize improper deals. The UN Monitoring Group report on Somalia and Eritrea in July alleged the central bank had become a slush fund for politicians. The UN report indicates that the Central Bank of Somalia is used to push private and not national interest. What do you say of the allegations of irregularities that millions of dollars have been withdrawn from the Central Bank of Somalia to private accounts?
I am completely surprised, perplexed, that a representative of reputable organizations as the United Nations can make such allegations without doing their due diligence, without inviting me and talking to me, and without visiting the central bank. I believe that these allegations are baseless, are malicious, and are uncalled for.
Did you audit and found out that indeed these allegations are quite baseless and does not stand on facts?
We have looked into the books, and this is the fact. Almost $17 million have been sent from PricewaterhouseCoopers and Transitional Federal Government account from Nairobi to the Central Bank of Somalia between 2011 and 2012. There were representatives from this Ministry of Finance, representative from the Central Bank of Somalia, representative from PricewaterhouseCoopers, representative from the remittance company or Hawala company that brought, that have signed in, and the Accountant General of the Federal Republic of Somalia have completed the paperwork and put it into the single treasury account.
Have you since reacted to the UN report? Has PricewaterhouseCoopers as an audit firm reacted to this, and what did they say if they did so?
I don't know what PricewaterhouseCoopers did, but what we did is we wrote them a letter. We will give you that letter. We have a copy of the letter that they're rejecting their ways, rejecting their rumors and their fishes information that they have spreading. And I want to challenge the monitoring group of the United Nations. Let's hire an independent audit. Let's hire an independent audit that doesn't work for them, that doesn't work for the Central Bank of Somalia, and come to the truth. I want to assure you, all the money that was sent from Pricewaterhouse in 2011 and 2012, which is in question, have arrived to the Central Bank of Somalia, have been deposited into the treasury account of the Ministry of Finance in a legal and proper way, and we can prove it. Also, I want to assure you, all the money that has been taken out from the Central Bank of Somalia went out in a process that's legal and legitimate. What's left is that when money leaves the Central Bank of Somalia, did it really go to the beneficiary? If it was for children, did it go to the children? If it was for salaries, did it go to the salaries? That the Ministry of Finance have to answer, and the departments of the government. I believe, though, there are no $12 million people put in their pockets that are missing.
See, this was during the time that the new central bank governor of Somalia, Yusuf Abrar, had unexpectedly resigned after approximately 7 weeks into the job. Now, the UN report also came out a few months before that, and it argued that the central bank had become a slush fund. Well, recently, they've officially named a new central bank governor. And this comes at the same time that Somalia is asking for debt relief. And the reason why they're asking for debt relief is because they're trying to make an effort to develop the country's economy. Now, Somalia's Foreign Minister, Abdurrahman Bele, said that they will work with the African Development Bank, the AFDB, regarding the cancellation of the debts. But that's going to be difficult because their credibility after the central bank scandals has taken quite a dip. And after earlier reports about 3 years ago, more allegations have come across and have come about regarding corruption when it comes to food aid, and it seems to be happening again. I mean, quite recently, speaking during a parliamentary briefing, Somali Interior Minister Abdullahi Qadar has confirmed that there are government officials who have misappropriated relief aid meant for displaced people. And this cannot happen. I mean, okay, they seem to know who has done it, but for some reason there have been no court date set, and nor do we know who was responsible. But we will keep watching the story, and we will continue right after the break. Stay tuned. Welcome back to the briefing room. I'm your host, Abu Hamza. I said this over and over and over and over and over again. There are too many individuals and companies building and making their careers on Somalia and its issues. First, it was the Transparency International report.
Hello and welcome. I'm Vincent McCory and this is Africa 54. Tonight, the report card is out. Somalia, North Korea and Afghanistan are the most corrupt states in the world. In conflict-ridden countries like Syria, reports of high levels of bribery and abuse of power. That's according to the latest index compiled by the Berlin-based group Transparency International. But here is a bit of good news. There is a strong progress in some African countries. From London, VOA's Henry Ridgewell has more.
Transparency International has published their annual Corruption Perceptions Index, which assigns scores to 177 countries. Marks between 0 and 100 are given, 100 being the cleanest public sectors and 0 being the most rife with underhanded dealings. Sadly, 2/3 of the countries assessed scored under 50. When it came to naming the most corrupt nation in the world, there was a three-way tie. Afghanistan, North Korea, and Somalia all ended up with the lowest result at 8 apiece.
So Somalia is not only the world's most failed state, but also the most corrupt according to these groups. Now we know about Transparency International. I mean, Transparency International, it's a company, it's based in Berlin in Germany, and it puts out this report yearly. And on their website, Transparency International states, the Corruption Perception Index has been widely credited with putting the issue of corruption on the international policy agenda. And going on from 2007, they have put Somalia as the most corrupt country in the world on their report. I mean, that was 2007. The same was in 2008, 2009, 2010, 2011, 2012, and voila, 2013. But what is it based on? I mean, on their website, TPI states that each year, we score countries on how corrupt their public sectors are seen to be. And the name makes sense now because it's a Corruption Perceptions Index. Keyword, perception. There's no physical proof for this, and I really don't understand why the mainstream media doesn't make this more clear in terms of burden of proof, as well as why the Somali media doesn't put out stories to counter this. But it's not only that report. See, Transparency International is not the only one who does these kind of reports. There are quite a few others, and I wanted to focus on another one today. Minority Rights Group International. See, Minority Rights Group International does a similar report, but it's about a different topic within it. See, they call it Peoples Under Threat. They have a world map and they have given points to each country, and it highlights those countries around the world where the risk of mass killing is greatest. And the majority of these countries are in Africa, the Middle and Far East. And as you can see, I mean, basically what they perceive to be third world countries. Now the Western countries are on the map, but have no points listed against them. And where does Somalia come? You've guessed it. As always, first place. I mean, they give it this rating because they said that they feel that the minorities in Somalia, including the Bantu, remain highly vulnerable, but also that all Somalis are under risk constantly due to the range of religious and or clan-based violence, with their allegiances constantly shifting.
Peoples Under Threat is an index of the risk factors by state for genocide, mass killing or other systematic violent repression. It takes the known indicators for mass killing, so that might be poor levels of governance, relative international isolation, history of violence, ethnic or sectarian tension. It values those indicators using current authoritative sources to combine them into one index which gives you an assessment of the risk factor by community in every country. Countries in Africa and the Middle East have dominated both the top countries in the list, i.e. those where the risk is greatest. People's under threat is important because it provides early warning of a very particular kind. The UN and other international authorities have got much better about early warning generally, but most of it is focused on, broadly speaking, conventional armed conflicts. What People's Under Threat looks at is the specific risk of mass ethnic or sectarian killing, the sorts of conditions that can potentially lead to genocide. That's hugely important for early warning. It's hugely important for those agencies who are concerned with civilian protection. But it also reminds international policymakers about something. You can't predict the future, but we can, on the basis of past experience and the known indicators, identify those places in the world where the chances of mass killing of particular ethnic or sectarian groups is now greatest, and that's what People's Under Threat attempts to do.
They're coming back from a civil war. They're trying to restart their government, trying to rebuild their infrastructures. I mean, what else do you expect? On the basis of past experience, identify those places in the world where the chances of mass killings of particular ethnic and sectarian groups is now the greatest, and that's what People's Under Threat attempts to do. There you have it. Another report released, more negative media. Interesting point is that they did not include Somaliland as part of Somalia. And it's an interesting shift in international reporting, but still. Since both of these are yearly reports, and they've constantly only held bad news about the Somali people, isn't it about time we started producing our own reports? I mean, I've said this before and I'll say it again. I mean, we need to do this yearly to counter theirs. We have to do our own research on ourselves to ensure that we highlight the good, that we correct the bad, and that we take responsibility for ourselves. And it's really high time that we do. So we have to be able to control our own stories in the media instead of allowing others to change the narrative and control the conversation. And that's what happens. And that's what happened. That's what happened in Nigeria. Which leads me on to our next topic, the World Economic Forum. And what does the World Economic Forum have to do with us controlling our conversation in the media? I'll tell you. The World Economic Forum, first of all, it's a Swiss non-profit foundation. It's based in Geneva. It describes itself as an independent international organization committed to improving the state of the world by engaging business, political, academic, and other leaders of society to shape global, regional, and industry agendas. They want to influence the world, in a nutshell. Now, the forum is best known for its annual winter meeting in Davos. Quite a nice place if you look at some of the photos. Davos itself, it's a mountain resort. It's in the Eastern Alps region of Switzerland. It looks very beautiful, and all these rich people obviously come together. And the meeting itself, it brings about 2,500 top business leaders, international political leaders, intellectuals and journalists to discuss the most pressing issues facing the world right now. And this includes health and the environment. But this time, one of its regional meetings was held in Abuja, Nigeria, between the 7th and 9th of May. And it's the first time it's been held in West Africa.
Ladies and gentlemen, I have now the honor to introduce to you our host, President Goodluck Jonathan.
Your Excellencies, heads of states and governments are here with us. Let me especially appreciate the presence of our special guest on this occasion, the Premier of China, Lake Chair, for being here with us. Your Excellencies, former heads of states and government, Professor Claus, other captains of industry, our development partners, diplomats, invited guests, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. As this is the first plenary session of this conference, let me use this unique opportunity to welcome you all to Abuja for this gathering of the World Economic Forum. Nigeria is proud to host this event, the first time the forum is coming to West Africa. We wish you a fruitful conference and a productive day and a productive stay in Abuja. Let me really especially thank all of you for accepting to come, especially this time that as a nation we are facing attack of terrorists. Let me appreciate individually and collectively for your support for us, your sentiments, and in fact, by your presence here in Nigeria at this time, you have already supported us to win the war against terror. If you had refused to come because of fear, the terrorists would have jubilated and even would have committed more havoc. But you are coming here to support us morally. It's a major blow on the terrorists. And by God's grace, we'll conquer the terrorists.
See, it was critical. It was a critical time. I mean, this was 3 weeks after the start of the hashtag, Bring Back Our Girls. See, by now, I'd hope that you would have all heard about the kidnapping of approximately 300 young Nigerian girls. It's a real tragedy. On the night of 14th and 15th of April 2014, over 300 female students were kidnapped by Boko Haram from the government secondary school in the town of Chibok on Borno State, Nigeria. But I wonder what would happen if these girls were kidnapped a month or two ago? I mean, just a month or two before that. Even 3 weeks before that. I mean, would they even fit in the news cycle between Oscar Pistorius' trial, the news on the missing Malaysian plane, and the ferry that capsized in South Korea? I mean, I honestly don't think so. And after all of the news slowed down, and 2 weeks after the actual kidnapping happened, that's when suddenly the world's media attention turned on this issue. A week before the World Economic Forum's meeting in Nigeria. See, it's a bit too much of a coincidence for my liking. And for the conference, for the conference itself, President Goodluck Jonathan's government deployed 5,000 police and soldiers. How many has he deployed for the missing girls? He asked for America to be able to come across and send across some drones to try and find them. But for the conference, he's closed all the schools and government offices in the capital. He ensured that there are fewer cars on the road so they can check them more thoroughly. But to find the girls, they suddenly need intervention from outside countries. It's a bit hard to believe, in my opinion. But the Bring Back Our Girls hashtag has not been the only hashtag used. I mean, other hashtags have been used as well. I mean, you had the hashtag, for example, Real Men Don't Buy Girls. And it's currently trending in the US, Nigeria, Spain, the UK, and other places. And it's being used quite widely together with Bring Back Our Girls. But just as with Bring Back Our Girls, many of the tweets include images of celebrities holding signs, in this case saying, Real Men Don't Buy Girls. Now, images of Sean Penn, Justin Timberlake, Ashton Kutcher, Jamie Foxx, and others are being widely shared right now. But the campaign that has the hashtag Real Men Don't Buy Girls, that campaign was started in 2011 by Ashton Kutcher and Demi Moore to fight trafficking. See, these pictures have just been reused for the Nigerian girls. So don't think that all of these celebrities have come out so recently supporting the Bring Back Our Girls campaign. I mean, some of them have, but not all of them. See, this data map that you can see right now, it illustrates the patterns of Bring Back Our Girls tweets sent worldwide. And as you see, aside from it where it started in Northwest Africa, the only other two places where this has a very high usage is in the UK and the US. And in the US it's mainly sort of the East Coast and the West Coast. But it's the UK and the US, and that's where you will see Office of Military Help coming from. See, we have to ensure that we can control the conversation. Our influence in the media needs to be stronger. Our links in there need to be greater. I mean, yes, the hashtag Bring Back Our Girls has really sparked international interest. Yes, it really has. I mean, it has brought the First Lady of the US, it's brought Angelina Jolie and the young girl Malala to voice their support. I mean, Anne Hathaway went to the streets with a megaphone to raise awareness about this issue. And albeit late, the media has picked up on this and leaders worldwide have weighed in. But the conversation is no longer ours. It is theirs. We don't control its direction. We don't control its impact, nor its benefits or disadvantages. See, this is in the news because the Western media and the international community wanted it in the news. Nothing more and nothing less. And we have to get to a point where they have no choice but to cover the news that we deem important, because we will be covering it ourselves. You see, they say that the revolution will not be televised, and especially when it came to Cuba and a lot of those other countries. But perhaps this is because television itself needs to be revolutionized. Thank you for watching The Briefing Room. I've been your host, Abu Hamza.